Hello and welcome to The Salt Keep. This is a text-based fantasy horror RPG type game. That's about all I know about this game, so let's continue. Well, I guess not. We gotta do a new game. That'd probably be best. Prologue, The Village. First thing Doyle saw was the smoke, barely thick and black above the rooftops. Oh, card-like. Very smoldering sources out of the sight beyond. Okay, let me try that again. Very smoldering sources out of sight behind the yellow daubed walls of the closest houses. Nervous pit had formed in his stomach, but he knew he couldn't turn back. One hand absent-mindedly pulled at the empty coin pouch on his belt. It had been 4 days since Doyle left Fingate. That was the last populated area before Cartwright, and nearly 2 weeks since he had spoken to anybody before that. He hadn't sold anything in over a month. Back of his wood cart was still filled with various designs of Atwater ceramics, each individual piece carefully separated by layers of burlap and hay, all of them jostling in place as they rolled over the uneven dirt road. He eyed one of the empty spaces where a hand-painted jug once sat. Fortunately, he had broken it during a pitch at the marketplace in Ulan. As they drew closer to the village, Doyle patted his mule. Skinny grey Molly he called Blondie. Despite the ragged black wisp that made up her mane and cooed for her to slow, seemed as anxious as he was at the sight of the village coming into view. Behind it all, looming on a rocky cliff that overlooked the endless sea, was the Salt Keep, home of Sir Edsel Carden. A few stray spires poked out above the high sandstone walls, purple and white Carden family banners hanging from them. A group of vultures circled overhead. Yeah, vultures circling never good. It usually means that death is approaching. Village Squire. Blondie whimpered as they rolled into the village square, her head swinging from side to side till she came to a stop. Again Doyle patted her, whispering promises in her ear. "We're okay, girl," he said. "We're almost there." For tying her in front of a 2-story inn. The sign above the door read, "The Golden Calf." That was where Mr. Haddon had promised to meet him. As he looked around the square, Doyle was struck by the silence. He didn't hear any of the bustle one would expect from a village in the late afternoon. In fact, he didn't hear anything but the occasional snort and hoof clomp from Blondie, as well as the sound of his own breathing. "Hello?" Doyle shouted. No response. The center of the square was a stone well. All around the perimeter were wattle and daub houses, the empty darkness of the windows staring back at Doyle. Whatever that word is, between them was a handful of storefronts. A sign above one read, "Helen's Meats," in thick, uneven lettering, while another, with a wide-open door, read, "Pick and Tack General Store." Even the stores were silent and dark. On the opposite side of the square, the main road sloped uphill to the Salt Keep. Okay, where do we want to go? You can look up at the main road, check on Blondie, go to the Golden Calf, go to the well. We'll check on Blondie, see how she's doing. Something about Blondie's disposition seemed off to Doyle. She looked nervous, swaying back and forth, comping as if she might bolt at any moment. As Doyle placed a hand on her head and stroked her well-brushed mane, she seemed to look past him, behind him, just searching for something. "Calm down now," Doyle said. "Come on, girl, you're okay." He patted her back and lifted the wool blanket that covered the back of his cart to look over the remainder of his stock. 12 Atwater classic vases in the ornamental design, 17 limited edition overglazed bowls, 19 cooking-grade Astor-style serving bowls. There had been 20 of each type in the initial set, The journeyman package Mr. Haddon had called it. The door had barely made a dent in the past 3 months. It was nowhere close to being able to pay off the initial investment, nor even cover the cost of the pieces that he had broken. Again, he felt the coin purse in his belt, so he might suddenly find something new there that he hadn't noticed before. But it was empty. Sighing, he glanced back towards the dirt road that led into town, a long way back to Hemstoke. Okay, that's a comfort, Blondie. Success! Yay! We did it! One hand still stroking Blondie's mane, Dory reached into his saddlebag, feeling around for anything that might put her at ease. Usually he kept treats for her. Carrots were a favourite, so he stoked up whenever he could find them. Well, he stocked up whenever he could find them, but they had been on the road a while, and it had been a long time since he had any coin to spare. Finally, Doyle felt something at the bottom of the bag, along with the grit that had collected there. A broken off tip of a carrot. Pulled it out and grinned. Here you go, said the Blondie. As Blondie chomped it. Let me try that again. Okay, he said as Blondie chomped it from his hand, her lips flapping. What did I tell you? Everything's fine. Okay, where do we want to do? Let's go to the well, I guess. The center of the village square was marked by a stone well with a wooden overhang above the opening. Neat cobblestone extended out in a circle, which Doyle assumed would ordinarily be well trodden by various townspeople bringing sloshing buckets back and forth. But there was nobody to see though. Next to the well was a wooden box with a carrying handle, open top covered with a piece of cloth, except for the iron head of a hammer that poked out from underneath. Toolbox, Doyle thought. Somebody had probably been using it to repair something on the overhang. There was no bucket attached, after all, or even a rope to hold one. Doyle knelt down to look at the box. Then he noticed a splash of red on the cobblestone. Uh-oh, that's not good. Nervous, he stood up and looked around, but he didn't see anybody. Then he peered over the edge of the well, down into the dark below. There was a bucket on the surface of the water, wet rope floating next to it. Some workman's tools was in the bucket, but Doyle couldn't quite make out what it was. Let's look at the toolbox. Doyle knelt down in front of the toolbox and pulled a cloth covering aside. First he saw the hammer. It had already been sticking out from beneath the cloth. Next to it was a wooden tray filled with an assortment of nails. Some of them looked dusty and bent, as if it had been nailed in somewhere else and pulled loose to reuse. The rest of the box was less organized. The pile Doyle saw a small hand-cranked auger, and a pricking knife that looked like it had been dulled with use. An assortment of different chisels still littered with wood shavings. Next to them was an iron hook, about 10 inches long, with enough room at the eye for a rope to pass through and be tied. Probably meant for the well. Doyle thought it, but he glanced up at the wooden overhang. It was not clear to him how to attach it. I know, Doyle said, pulling the hook on the toolbox and holding it up towards the Blondie. You think it's okay to borrow this? Blondie didn't say anything as he pocketed it. Okay, let's turn back. I am quiet. Iron hook. Okay, let's look around the main road. Main road in Cardwike was a long stretch of dirt marked by the heavy ruts, darkened by the wagon wheels and cars, most probably just like Doyle's. Small pools of muddy water had formed in deeper pits, dark white houses lined on other sides. There was nobody out as far as he could see. Ahead, the road veered in two directions. First led gradually upward about a quarter mile towards the keep, while a smaller offshoot headed down towards the docks. Back behind it all, among the side streets, not far from the keep, something was burning. Joe looked up at the black smoke billowing above the rooftops. Look up at the upper road. The road to the keep was lined on either side by various houses and storefronts. A massive 3-story building with a sign that read Wheatley's Finance and Loan caught Dora's eye on the side, and on the other was a hanging banner stretched across two buildings advertising the Cardwick Fish Market, though the market itself was out of view down a side street. Cardwick wasn't the largest castle town Dora had passed through, but seemed industrious. There was also an Outwater ceramics distribution centre, somewhere out there after all. Towering above all of it, at the end of the main road, where the upward slopes peaked, was the salt keep. Where he stood, most of what Dora could see was the sandstone walls and the iron portcullis of the front gates, though the tops of 3 towers loomed above them, smaller 2 on either side and large in the centre. Purple and white banners flew from poles atop each of them. Okay, let's look at the lower roads. The lower roads veered off from the main one, just a few steps outside the square. It sloped downwards, carving into a cliff face until it reached the sea below. There, Dora saw a pier lined with fishing boats and a few larger vessels jutting out into the water. You can make out some buildings alongside it. Something that looked like a tavern, and a sprawling warehouse topped with a sign that read, Endless Sea Shipping, and it was hard to see clearly. Still, it didn't look like there was anybody there. The pier was nothing compared to what he'd seen in Port Warren, but it still seemed likely that there was a major source of commerce in Cardwick. Every village on the water had fishermen, but they weren't all shipping centres. That was probably part of the reason Atwater would be a distribution centre after all. Okay, let's go back. Okay, only thing left is to go to the Golden Calf. The grain door of the Golden Calf creaked its door, notched it open, glancing back at Blondie as if he might offer some expression of reassurance. She gave him nothing, though. Hesitant, Dora stepped aside, mud-caked rushes shifting beneath his feet as he shut the door behind him. Interior was as silent as the village square. Ashing wooden tables populated the first floor. An unpolished bar spanned the back of the room. Row brown glass bottles, local brews most likely, plus a few imports from Assault or Igban, lined the countertop behind it. At the end of the bar was a door hanging slightly ajar, with a handmade sign nailed to it that read Private. Hello, he said. Is anybody here? Nobody answered. Dora ran a hand along the bar as he kept looking, stopping for a moment to stare at the wall behind it. There was a wooden carving hanging there, ragged and uneven, like a piece of driftwood. It looked like it was supposed to be something like a cow. The eyes were too large, though, each one a gaping black abscess on a malformed wood of the head. The staircase led up to the second floor, but overlooked the first. All the rooms were there, Dora assumed. They could just make out the tops of a foreclosed door. Let's look at the bar. The floor behind the bar was littered with broken glass. Some of those brown bottles must have dropped at some point. The wood was still wet, though, so it couldn't have been long ago. Dora pictured shattered bits of ceramic in the dirt in the marketplace in Yulin, then let out a heavy sigh. Nestled under the bar in a locked glass case was a bottle of Aston brandy. Last time he had a drink so decent was about 5 years ago, the night of the wedding, or on the night of his wedding. His father had brought him a single bottle as a gift. It was an assault wine. Actually, but close enough. and they polished off the whole thing before spending their first night together. That was a long time ago, though, before Nila had left, before Doyle had become another Atwater associate. For a moment, Doyle considered trying to take the brandy, but looked around again for a bartender, or anyone else who might be watching. It's not right, he thought. Nobody deserves anything they haven't earned. Okay, let's go upstairs then. The stairs creaked beneath Doyle's feet as he made his way upstairs. A narrow open hallway wrapped around the second floor, with 3 closed doors ahead of him, and one more on the end. Doyle heard nothing from any of them. "Is this place even open?" he called, looking for Mr. Haddon. There was no response, but Doyle was almost certain he heard a sudden shuffling sound from one of the rooms. Each had a wood-carved number on the door, rough and uneven, like the carving downstairs. Labeling them 1 through 4. Nervous, Doyle clenched his fists. It's like Mr. Fulton had told him back in Corton Hill. "Clench each fist to tell yourself you're strong," he had said before, between bites of boiled lamb. "Every potential customer can sense your anxiety." "Hello," he said again. "I heard somebody up there. Is everything okay?" "Okay, let's investigate the rooms. Hopefully it won't end badly for us." Joel stepped up to the first room, eyes locked on the wood-carved number, pressed his ear to the wood, then knocked. He moved on to the second door and did the same, then the third. The fourth door he paused, fist clenched and unclenching. Palms beginning to sweat. An image popped into his mind, passed through the woods on the way to Hemstock where he grew up. His father used to take him into the marketplace in Corton Hill, just half a day's walk down the dirt roads that all the farmers on the outskirts used, to help him sell the barley they grew. Afterwards, the old man would get drunk at a tavern, not unlike the Golden Calf, and once his eyes began to droop and his mood began to sour, he'd send Doyle back home by himself with the cart. Sometimes Doyle would see shadows on the old dirt roads, just flickers in the dark ahead of him, and he felt a kind of certainty that he couldn't explain. It was certainty that told him that there was something out there. It wasn't just some roaming monster, some horrifying facet of nature. It was there for him, specifically for him, of all people, and it was waiting, and he deserved to be found. Some nights, as he rolled that car back to Hemstock, hoped it would find him. That was years ago, though. Doyle wasn't a child anymore. Clenched one final time, then knocked on the door. "Hello," Doyle said. "I heard someone inside. Is Mr. Hayden up here?" Nobody answered, but again Doyle heard a shuffling sound and a muffled groan from inside. He glanced back at the balcony. Lonnie's back man was just visible through one of the front windows. His heart was pounding, palms sweating. Again he knocked. "Do you know where the owner is?" He kept knocking. "Nobody in the square, and I'm getting a little worried here, okay? Please, answer me." A few more seconds passed without response, and Doyle turned back towards the stairs. He slid a hand along the railings as he tried to calculate how many buildings there might be in Cardwick. How long it might take to just check every side street until he found some sign that mentioned Atwater Ceramics. But before he reached the stairs, he heard a sound from behind the door. "Just leave," the man said. His voice was shaky, strained. "Get out of here." "Who's there?" Doyle asked. "Is that Mr. Haddon? Please, let me in. Need to leave." It was him. Despite the bravery in the man's voice, Doyle was certain. They'd run into each other at a tavern in Newland a few weeks prior, first time crossing paths again in over a year. Haddon told him stories about his time travelling through Edon, and Doyle tried to put on a good face. After a few flagons of cheap asphalt or ale, he couldn't help himself. "All this is working," he said through tears. Then he took Hen outside to see the cart, still full of unsold ceramics. I keep trying, but nothing is working. Nearest that water distribution centre was in Hardwick. Han told him, and even though he wasn't sure what they'd say, he agreed to act as a liaison. Mr. Han, Doe said again, talk to me. Are you okay? I'm in bad shape, kid. I mean it. You need to get out of here. Let me help. Can you open the door? I don't know, Han said. He seemed to cough the words out, choking through each syllable. Then there was a long pause. After a bit of shuffling, the door heard a thump and an agonized groan. I can't. Come back, kid. Just go. Door reached for the handle, and it was locked. I'll find a way in, okay? Okay, well, I don't have the grit to break down the door, apparently, so gotta go back downstairs. We could maybe use the hook to lockpick it, but apparently we can go into the private room. Joel peeked through the half-open door, one hand on the jabber as he looked inside. Sorry to intrude, he said. Is anyone here? Need some help, please. Pushed the door open the rest of the way, but there was nobody there. Inside was a room that seemed to double as a bedroom and a storage room. One side had a small feather-stuffed mattress and a bookcase, lined intermittently with leather-bound texts and cleaning supplies, while the other side was dominated by stacks of barrels and wooden crates. The gospel was seen precariously on top. On the wall by the bed was a corkboard and various scraps of parchment pinned to it. Most looked like lists and reminders scrawled in sloppy black ink. And below was an iron-braced trunk, large and seemingly unlocked. A wooden stand nearby was a tall, oval-shaped mirror, glass dusty and speckled with dirt. A frayed throw rug next to the bed seemed to delineate the two halves of the room, one for life and one for toil. Doyle wondered if that actually worked for whoever lived there. It had been so long since he had been away from Morley that the card he found it hard to believe that somebody could actually separate things that way. Okay, let's look at the open trunk. There might be something useful in there. Doyle squatted in front of the trunk and pulled the latch. It was made of heavy iron with a room for a padlock, but it was hanging open and loose, so he shook his head and opened it. The lid was heavier than he expected, and it banged against the wall as he lifted it. Inside he found a pile of loose tools and supplies, most rusted or broken, many that looked too old to be useful. Rifled through them, an old wood scrapper and a ballad up piled black-stained rags, and a cracked piece of wood that looked like it may have been a chair leg. But we found a cold stretch of rope buried underneath. Not stealing this, he shouted to nobody in particular as he pulled the rope from the trunk and pocketed it. Might need this. It's an emergency. Of course, whatever you need to tell yourself. Okay, well we got a cold rope now. Okay, let's look at the mirror. Doyle glanced at the mirror, his own face looking back in the speckled glass. There was the dirty beige tunic he'd been wearing for days, and the brass-buckled leather belt that tied it at the waist, emptying pouches and a coin purse hanging from it. There were his olive-green breeches tucked into black leather boots, both coated a greyish-brown from dried mud, and a black linen cloak. It had been his mother's once long ago, tied around his neck. He hoped to be more presentable for his meeting with Haddon, but after days on the road, his salesman would understand. His face was less excusable. It had been a long time since he'd seen himself in a mirror, and he felt like he barely recognized the man looking back at him. He had dirty blonde hair, cut short that should have been neatly combed, but instead looked disheveled from travelling. His hairline receded faster than seemed appropriate for his 31 years. His lips were thin, and his chin narrow, which gave his whole expression a slightly drooping character. While there was no way to know for sure, He was certain that people noticed that before anything else when they looked at him. First of all, his mustache bothered him. Mr. Fulton taught him to grow one years ago. Look more respectable, he said. More professional. Once Doyle tried it, he agreed. Since then, he's always tried to keep a neat chevron on his upper lip, carefully trimmed and maintained. He'd lost track since Huron, though, and had begun to creep over the edge of his lip, while the rest of his usually clean-shaven face had sprouted 3 days of patchy stubble. Ran two fingers over his mustache, his head shaking. Okay, let's look at the corkboard. Corkboard looked ancient, covered from top to bottom in pinholes, brown spots where all the corks had crumbled away. Clusters of loose pins poked from it here and there. Around them were various bits of parchment with black inked notes, scrawled across them, both crumpled and stained as if they had started their lives on the wet surface of a bar. Doyle scanned the parchment for anything relevant, but mostly mundane. List of foods items, probably meant for a market. Various series of names and a sum of gold coins next to them. A star poem addressed to somebody named Haley, which seemed to peter out into a scribble after a few lines, as if the author had grown too disgusted with her own writing to continue. One note stood out, just a few words in black ink, pinned near the center. July 20th, Atwater Rep. Open early. It was about a week and a half ago. Doyle didn't know what to make of it. That's a little concerning. Doyle knelt down in front of one of the nearest barrels, looked it up and down for some kind of label. First job had been selling barrels of ale, just like the one for Fulton Sons Brewery back in Cornhill. And every one of the barrels had a logo stamped in black ink on the front. People don't need to remember the taste, Mr. Fulton used to say, but they need to remember the name. There didn't seem to be any markings Doyle could find, though. While the barrels were lined up next to it. They looked the same, unmarked, probably made somewhere in Cardwick. A few mismatched crates were stacked next to them. One uncovered just enough that Doyle could see clean linens and straws stuffed pillows inside. On top were a collection of glass bottles, each with a proper label. Doyle only recognized a few of the bigger names. Dunmore Vineyards and Light Manor, and Upton Brothers. But despite selling ale, he never learned much about liquor or wine. One bottle caught his attention, pocket-sized and made from a blue-tinted glass, with a cork stopper. He opened it to smell the contents. Rose, he said to himself. Liquor inside was thick and oily, like some kind of salve, rather than a drink. Perhaps it was a medicine, he thought. Didn't seem likely that it would do any good for a major wound, but for something less severe. Struck him as useful. Again, he looked around the room, almost expecting to see somebody watching him. Going to take this, okay? I'm sorry. He pocketed a small glass bottle. Okay, well, got that. Okay, well, what now? Okay, looks like we gotta go back out onto the main road. Oh, okay, here we go. We can break open a case in the bar. Okay, we got some stuff. Base experience, fairly penny, 50%, total and 25. Oh, I got a fairly, I just realized. Again, Doyle looked around, thinking some barkeep might emerge at any moment to escort him, but still the room was silent. Both hands he tried to pull open the sliding glass of the case, and it didn't budge. Whether the key fit the lock was probably with the barkeep. Barkeep could have been anywhere, poor Doyle knew. They weren't even in the card book anymore. Sorry, he said to nobody in particular. My friend needs this. I'm really sorry. He punched the glass. It was a little too gentle and the glass just rattled on the wooden grove that held it. Again he punched it and it rattled, till he finally pulled his back fist and slugged it. The glass shattered with a satisfying crash. Razor sharp shards falling to his feet. Then As he nodded to himself, he noticed a trickle of blood, then a long, thin slice across the top of his hand. Luncheon Door pocketed the brandy. Okay, well, we got that now, so yay. Okay, we got unrequired and also an injury, yay. Okay, if we had maybe looked around a bit more, we could have found our, or tried to find a key, but... Oh, here we go, we can use the rope and hook here. Billy Square was silent as Dole sat down on the edge of the cobblestone well and pulled the coil of rope and the iron hook from his bag. Alright, I forgot we had the rope, so we can actually do that now. Blondie watched from his next to the gone calf as he unraveled the rope. He must have thought it was some kind of treat he was preparing, and threaded it through the eye of the hook. This'll work, he mumbled to himself. Good. After he tied off the rope, he draped the whole thing over the wooden overhang above the well, like an oversized fishing line. Then he glanced back at Blondie, as if she would be proud of him. The blank expression offered nothing, for leaning over the edge of the well and staring into the dark, with her breath held, he began to lower it. Gradually it approached, swaying and clinging against a stone, till it was hovering just above the bucket below. The wire handle was fastening to each side of the bucket in a semicircle shape, and after a few tries, Dole managed to swing the hook under it. Slow and cautious, he raised the bucket up until it was close enough to grab. Inside was an iron pry, half submerged in a shallow layer of water that sloshed as Doyle tossed the bucket onto the cobblestone. The workman must have dropped it. Again he glanced at Blondie as she pocketed the tool. Prideful nod in her direction. She didn't respond. Okay, well, we got pry bar, and we lost the cord rope and the hook. Well, I hope we don't need them anytime soon. Dole checked the door handle again, thinking in a moment of naive optimism that hand somehow managed to unlock it. Fortunately, he hadn't. You okay in there? Dole asked. I told you to leave, Hand said, his voice strained. Came another small groan and cough. I'll find you here. Just go, kid. Come on. Not leaving you in there. Find a way, okay? Okay, well, I still can't do that. Oh, okay, there we go. We can equip it. Okay, so that'll be good. Okay, let's go back. Okay, we still can't do that. Oh, okay, so I can actually... Okay, I think cut across the palm of my hand that Dole received while breaking the open glass case beneath the bar of the golden calf. It's worth it for the brandy, though. Yeah. I can use it on my injury, apparently. Okay, I'm now healed. Yay. Okay, I've got a grit now, so I should be able to... Yeah, I can finally break down the door. Yay. I just had to heal my hand. Almost like Ethan from Resident Evil games. As long as I don't need to stick on any limbs or anything, I should be good. Okay, step back, Dole said. Gonna break it down. No, Hen said, choking on his word. Don't bother. Dole took a few steps back, one hand on the railing to steady himself. He breathed deep, thinking of Blondie and the cart outside. The others faced back in Hemstoke. Imagine his father standing behind him and watching. Dole looks a little heavy, the old man would have muttered between hiccups. I don't know. Dole's face reddened and his skin grew hot. Without thinking, he charged forward. The right shoulder slammed into the wood with a crack. The jab next to the handle splintered. The door flew open, slamming against the wall behind it, as Dole crashed into the room. Then he stood up, dusted himself off, and somewhat proud of himself, before gasping at the sight of Hayden. Last time Dole had seen him was over a handshake in the city limits of Ulan, just after they had agreed to meet up. He'd been in good spirits, with an expansive head of hair, grey as much as it was black. That bounced when he walked. The round belly of a comfortable man, strong arms that looked like they had somehow been honed without ever being seriously used. Doyle was decades younger than Hayden, but he was exactly the type of man Doyle hoped to live long enough to be, competent in a way that appeared effortless. Now he was not so imposing. A streak of blood slid down the wall to where Hayden slumped against it, bit of red pooling beneath him. Both hands shook, covering a wound on his abdomen. Normally dark skin had taken on a grey pallor, glistening with sweat, and he gritted his teeth as he looked up at Doyle. "You have to go, kid," Hayden said. Looked like he wanted to say more, but grimaced as he tried to open his mouth. "I'm done for. You have to go, right now." Now let's offer him the brandy. At least we can do while he's on death's bed. Doyle squatted next to Hayden, carefully moving the man's hand from the wound to look at it. Blood soaked the edges of the opening torn to the linen in his tunic. It was knee-length and embroidered, with a silver-studded belt, fancier than anything Doyle had ever owned, oozed from a small slit of wound in Hayden's stomach. Once Doyle saw the wound, he realized how unprepared he was to deal with it. He looked wide-eyed around the room for a moment, as if he might, in a moment of absurd good luck, find some clearly marked medical solution. All he saw was a straw-stuffed mattress, and an end table next to a small rock made from the fur of some ambiguous animal, plus bits of splintered wood from the door. "I don't know what to do," Doyle said. "I thought I could... I don't know." "Just leave," Hayden said. "Go, kid. Don't have much time." "I can't just... Okay, how about this?" Doyle pulled the Aston brandy from his bag, corked it and poured a bit into the man's mouth. Then he plopped Hayden's hands back over their wound and left the bottle next to him. "That's better, right? That's something." "It's something," Hayden said. He rested one hand on the bottle. "It sure is." Doyle looked around the room again, then at Hayden's blood-soaked hands clasped over his wound. Didn't know what else to say. For some reason, all he could think of was the deer he and his father had been found bleeding out on the side of the road near Corton Hill. It was about 10 years old at the time, and had an arrow lodged in its throat. Some hunter must have hit it, but lost track of it afterwards, and his father took a knife to it. Let it die easy, for years Doyle thought of that deer, looking up at him. Those beady black eyes, the rapid breathing. Always wondered if it knew it was dying. "I don't know," Doyle said. "That's all I can say, really. I don't think I can do much else." Hand nodded, one hand resting on the bottle. "Go, kid, please." "I don't want to just... please." Doyle nodded. "I'll find help, okay? I'll be back." "Okay, well, it looks like we're leaving him once more. And we lost the brandy. But it was worth it." As Doyle descended the creaking steps from the second floor, he noticed something. A shadow in the late afternoon sunlight came through the window, cracked down the banister behind the stairs, then peered through the gaps between the steps. There was somebody outside, next to Blondie. He heard the clanking of steel, like armor, a couple of voices, distinct and grumbling. Then, a man passed the window. It was steel breastplate and chainmail with a cloak clasped at the neck, purple and white, the Khan family colours. It looked like he had just returned from battle. Mud stains covered his breeches and splashed onto the plate. A number of suspect spatters of red were highlighted against the steel. Short black hair was matted with sweat and dirt. The expression on his face was one of the abject bewilderment. Set the village square in which he stood with some kind of incomprehensible monstrosity to him. Looked like a city guard to Doyle. "Yeah, I don't think talking to him is going to be good. We'll have to sneak out the back." Noted by the side of the guard, Doyle crept behind the bar, broken glass crunching beneath his feet. He squatted, keeping his head low in out of sight, till he emerged from the other side, one hand reaching out slowly to turn the handle of the door in the back of the tavern. Despite his best effort, he nudged the broken neck of one of the shattered broken bottles to the ground. Rolled a few feet, clinking on each gap of the floorboards. Doyle froze. Guards outside didn't look, though. Thank fucking God, because otherwise that would have ended badly. And he slipped through the door and into the alley behind the gone car. Water and dog houses surrounded a narrow street on either side. Some with glue lines stretched between them. Simple, undyed linens and wool frocks swayed in the breeze. Pockets of litter and refuse were scattered here and there. And just next to the door to the gone car was a stack of wooden crates. Maybe some untouched delivery still waiting to be unpacked. Door threw up next to them and peeked around the corner. The guard was still there, as well as two others looking at Blondie. Before he could get a good look, he heard footsteps behind him. Ah, shit. He turned to see steel plates in a purple and white cloak. All the guards standing behind him. Well, so much for sneaking out. Oh, Dora said, stumbling back into the crate. Sorry, I didn't. First, the guard didn't even look at Dora. He turned to him slowly, as if he hadn't really heard anything he said. A look of bewilderment still on his face. He didn't say anything, though. He just opened his mouth as if to scream, his face a silent expression of horror. Dora stepped back, sliding alongside the crates. Are you okay? Still, the guard said nothing, his open mouth straining palpable fear in his eyes. They all noticed the blood on his armor. Thick splatter of red, clearly not his own, across his breastplate. Suddenly obscured by the guard's mail-clad arm, as he unsheathed his long sword. Blade glinted in the afternoon sun, marred by his wet blood and dirt. Wait now, Dora said, stepping back. Wait a minute. As the guard raised his sword to swing, Dora turned and fled. Uh-oh. Yeah, they definitely seen something. Somebody help, Dora screamed as he ran. Please help me. He didn't see anybody on the road or in the dark window of the houses he passed. On his left, he spotted a blacksmith shop. A thatched canopy jutted from the side, housed stone furnace. It looked cold, the bellows of the anvil unmanned. And on its right was a looming statue, outstretched palm yabs, carved from stone and beckoning as if to let him know that his debt was about to be claimed. They were behind him in seconds, his leather boots alternating between kicking out clouds of dust and scorching into thick mud, depending on where he stepped. Then he passed a butcher shop, with a slaughtered pig's carcass hanging on the doorway in the dirt. Tremendous warehouse or building with a sign too high above him to read. A house with a trail of blood leading out from the darkened doorway. There was nobody anywhere. The smell of smoke was still in the air. He heard a dog barking somewhere in the distance. His breath felt heavy and tight in his throat, till he finally slowed as he noticed a person up ahead. His relief only lasted for a moment when he saw the glint of steel in the afternoon light, and a hint of purple and white fluttering the breeze behind it. Heart racing, Doyle looked back at the way he had come. He could still see Blondie and his car at the end of the road, now just a dot in the distance. Sorry, girl, he thought, and three guards marching towards him. Okay, so we can either hide or keep running. Yeah, it looks like we have a bit more chance if we keep on running. And, I mean, the guards would probably see us try and hide, so let's keep running. Okay, and it was a success. Awesome. In panic, Doyle turned from the main road and rushed down a side street. The air was cool in the shade between the houses, and he passed one and another, and another. He couldn't bring himself to turn and see if the guards were still behind him. He kept running, his breath catching his throat. Sweat drenched his tunic, and his legs already ached, but he had to keep going. Going his line of work, he spent a lot of time on his feet, but such a burst of exertion was still rare for him. He passed more houses, veering into one alleyway from another. And he finally began to slow as he ducked under a line of still wet animal skins hanging from a wire, stretched between buildings. He leaned against the nearest wall, struggling to catch his breath. He'd actually outrun them, he thought. Then he listened. Head drooped, but couldn't hear much over his own heavy breathing. There was something like a voice in the distance, but it seemed far. He couldn't make out any words. He stared up at the hanging skins, sweat dripping down his face and catching his mustache, till he froze. There were footsteps. One after the other came closer. The clanking of armor became clear. When he leaned around the corner of the building, he saw it. Not a guard. Purple and white cloak flowing behind him. Shocked, Doyle turned away from the wall and ran, face brushing against one of the hanging skins. Turned one corner and another. No idea where he was going. House after house he passed. He saw nobody who could help him. Still no sign of Atwater Ceramics. Finally, Doyle emerged from an alleyway into a clearing of sorts. It must have been a town garden, he thought, because piles of vegetation had been haphazardly chopped apart and tossed aside around the edges. In the center was a massive open pit. His boots scorched into nearly black mud as he stepped forward, and an overwhelming stench of death and burning him all at once. Side with rows and rows of bodies. Some were visibly wounded, missing limbs or showing huge gashes across torsos, soaked in blood from whatever crushing blow had ended them. All seemed to have been tossed in without much thought, limbs splayed in all directions, mud swallowing some of those at the edges. Some were blackened and charred, a few still smoking, as if some attempt had been made to burn them, probably unsuccessfully because of the mud. The urge to rush was so strong that Doyle nearly didn't notice the two men on the other side of the pit. One was a city guard, mud-caked and disheveled, like the others, but otherwise seemingly lucid, sprawled out and struggling on his back. The other was a large man in full plate armor, glistening steel, marred by dirt and spatters of blood. Flowing purple and white cape dragging through the mud. I guess this is where the other guards came from, I guess. Yeah, I'm guessing these are the boys or the townspeople as well. Oh, that answers at least a few questions, which I didn't really want to answer to. Plate-clad man wore a steel helmet and an ornate pennant etched into the sides, but as he pinned the guard down with one hand, he removed it from the other. Dark brown hair cut messy and sharp framed a bearded face marked by deep lines on the forehead. Given the armor, Doyle expected a strong chin, angular bone structure, respectable breeding of a place like Aslam or Westcarden. But the man looked ordinary, like a well-built soldier one might see marching along the road between any two towns in Edmore. "Let me up," screamed the guard. "You know me, Captain." The captain didn't say anything, just dropped his helmet in the mud and grabbed the guard's shoulders with both hands, leaned in close. Purple and white of his cloak draped over both of them as he stared, face stern and expressionless, his mouth an unbreaking line. Without a word, the captain eyed wine, and so did the guards. A sheen of sweat formed all over the pinned man's skin as his lips trembled apart, no sound coming out, as if he had seen something so awful in the captain's eyes that he couldn't even find the words to plead. Then the captain placed a gauntlet-clad hand over his face and pressed him down, pushing his head into the mud. A few sounds like words choked from the man's throat, and his arms and legs jerked violently, one fist pounding at the captain's mud-splattered breastplate. His head sank deeper and deeper, till finally something seemed to give under the captain's weight. Then the guard stopped moving. The captain stood, pulling his helmet from the mud, and looked at Doyle. This is not good. Yeah, we don't stand a chance fighting him. And just wait for the best. Yeah, sure. Now, we'll try and trick him since we got 50% rate on this one. And it was a failure. Son of a bitch. Maybe we should have just hoped for the best. Maybe we could have gotten lucky. Okay, Doyle said, standing and stepping back from the pit. He held both hands out towards the captain. I'm just lost. I'm here on business, okay? That's all. Captain didn't say anything. Face was still blank, an expressionless void like Doyle had never seen on a human being before. Then he marched towards Doyle, his mud-caked helmet in his left hand, as he unsheathed a blood-stained broadsword with the right. "Please, wait," Dor said as the captain drew near. "Here on business," I said. The captain's grip seemed to tighten on the broadsword, and Dor knew he had no other option. He glanced left and right for an escape route. The stench of death still wafted from the pit ahead of him. He clenched his fists. Just as the captain raised his broadsword, Dor ducked down, both hands thrusting into the black mud at his feet. It was cold on his bare flesh, but without hesitation, Dor flung a thick handful up towards the captain's face. Rather than making contact, though, it sailed by nearly a foot away, bits splattering into his blonde hair, but eliciting no reaction. Then the broadsword came swinging down to Dor just as he tried to scramble away. He managed to avoid it somewhat by crouching down, but the blade made contact, slicing into his left arm. Without a sharp pain sent Dor toppling backwards. "Oh great, I got a slashed arm now. Rip." Mud just sloshed under Dor's feet as he scrambled away from the captain, his back pressing up against a building at the edge of the clearing. Then he turned towards another of the narrow alleys between the houses. Just one step and he saw purple and white. One of the guards approaching from the other end. The whites in his eyes glinted, even in the shade, wet and bulging and stained. So a breath, Dor turned back to the pit to find another way, but instead saw the captain marching towards him again. Tightness seemed to envelop Dor's heart, just like the way he'd felt when the Atwater Classic shattered in the dirt at Ulan. And the way he felt when the innkeeper knocked at the door to his room days later. "I hate to do this," he said. "Can't let you stay any longer." The way he felt that day back at home in Hemstoke, lumping through as he stood in the doorway, Nella telling him she was sorry for the last time before she rode away. It really didn't matter, Dor thought. He glanced left and right, again for an exit. There were still more alleyways. He might be able to make it, but the energy seemed to have left him. His legs had stiffened, as if he were rooted there in the mud. Then he felt the captain's steel gauntlet wrapped around his neck. That tightness still in his chest. The captain leaned in close to his face, eyes wide and empty. He stared at Doyle. A chill came over him, and he began to swaddle over. His fingers and toes splaying and gasping involuntary. He saw nothing in those eyes. Heavy, black nothing. It seemed to fall over him like a blanket. Like he was suddenly floating in the middle of the endless sea. Deep under the waves. So far down that he couldn't see the surface. Nothing but vast, infinite, freezing blackness all around him. Doyle wanted to let go. To just open his mouth and let the water fill his lungs. But before he could, though, he hit the ground. He felt mud on his hands, vision hazy until he saw the captain standing over him, marching again. He heard somebody screaming, still clashing against steel. Bubbles so cold, like ocean water. He smelled burning bodies in the air. Then he heard a voice. "Stay with us," the woman said. "You're almost there." And we get to end the chapter. And that was just the prologue. On to chapter 1, The Courtyard. But with that, I'm actually going to end it here, because, yeah, I've been recording for nearly an hour. But yeah, man, this is really interesting. I'm really liking it so far. Might read this in my own time, but if you guys want to read more of this, link will be down in the description below. And yeah, we'll be moving on to the next game.